The border moon was dying slowly, its air thin and trembling with dust that glittered in the light of two broken suns. Lieutenant Marcus Hale stood among the ruins of an abandoned outpost, his armor streaked with ash and silence. The war had left everything hollow. Metal bones of machines, cracked domes, empty helmets half buried in the sand. Humanity and the Jirai had called this place neutral ground. A fragile ceasefire stretched thin like glass, but to Marcus, it was just another graveyard waiting for wind to erase the names. He was searching for heat signatures among the debris when his scanner flickered with a faint pulse. Small, uneven like a heartbeat. He followed it through a narrow corridor torn open by explosions, past walls where alien glyphs still glowed faint blue, and found it, a child curled up beside a shattered generator, its body striped with silver and gold fur. Chest rising weakly, it was an alien cub no older than 6. Eyes large and bright but hollowed by hunger. For a long moment Marcus only stared, training and instinct warring inside him. The ceasefire order said no contact with alien civilians. No interference, no mercy that could be twisted into propaganda. But he saw the bones showing under fur, the tremor of small hands and the sound it made, a low, broken whimper that didn't belong to an enemy, only to someone alive. He took off his helmet, letting the cold air bite his skin, and knelt slowly. The cub flinched back, its claws weakly scratching the ground. Marcus placed his ration pack on the floor, unwrapped it and slid it forward. The smell of bread and dried meat filled the air. The child hesitated, then snatched a piece and devoured it. Tears running down its striped cheeks, Marcus handed over his canteen next. The cub drank until its throat trembled. "What's your name?" Marcus asked softly, not sure if it would understand. The cub blinked, swallowed, and spoke in a thin, melodic accent. "Aru," it said. "Mother will come." Marcus smiled faintly. "I'm counting on that," he whispered. But the air shifted. The sand trembled beneath his boots. A low hum rolled through the ruins like thunder from the ground. Marcus looked up. The clouds twisted apart, and from the bruised sky descended a ship, sleek, curved, painted with glowing crimson lines that pulsed like veins. Fighters circled around it, their wings humming. Marcus grabbed the cub and ducked behind a broken wall. He raised his rifle by reflex, though he knew it was pointless. The craft landed on the plain, its hull glowing with heat, and from the ramp walked a figure unlike any he'd ever seen. She was tall, poised, wrapped in armor that shimmered between metal and living hide. Her mane of dark stripes moved with the wind like silk and fire. Her eyes were gold, steady and unreadable. Soldiers followed behind her in silent rows, claws and blades gleaming. Marcus knew her instantly by reputation. Princess Shayra of the Jirai, commander of the Eastern Pride, the fiercest commander their enemies had ever named. She stopped at the edge of the ruins, her gaze sweeping across the battlefield until it fell upon the cub. Aru let out a small cry and wriggled free. Running to her, Shayra dropped to one knee, gathering the child against her chest. The armor hissed softly as it adjusted to her motion. For a heartbeat, the fear faded. Only a mother remained, then her gaze rose to Marcus, still half hidden among the ruins. Rifle lowered but trembling, she stepped forward. Graceful and unhurried, the soldiers tensed. But she raised a hand. They stopped. "You fed my child," she said, her voice carrying like a calm storm. "Under the law of rescue, you have invoked a bond between our blood?" Marcus frowned, still catching his breath. "I didn't do it for a law," he said. "I did it because he was starving." Shayra tilted her head slightly, studying him. The cub looked up at both of them, eyes wide. "The law doesn't care for reason," she said quietly. "It only recognizes the act, and now by our code, you are bound to my pride until the rescued is safe and grown." Behind Marcus, his comm unit buzzed with urgent static. His own platoon had detected alien landing craft. Orders screamed in his ear to stand down, hold fire, hold position. On the Jirai side, the warriors bristled, claws tightening on rifles. The tension between both sides thickened. Every second could ignite a war again. Marcus took a slow breath, trying to understand the trap he'd walked into. "So what happens if I say no?" he asked. Shayra's expression didn't change, but the soldiers behind her moved closer. "Then the law demands satisfaction," she said, "and the child's life will be seen as stolen. Not saved." The cub pressed closer to her leg, whimpering softly. Marcus looked around, nothing but dust, dead machines, and eyes watching from every direction. He had been a soldier long enough to know when a decision would echo far beyond the battlefield. He lowered his rifle and stepped forward. "Then I'll go," he said. "If that's what it takes to keep him safe." The wind picked up, carrying the sound of engines, human and alien, both circling above. The ceasefire trembled on the edge of shattering. Shaira's eyes softened for the first time, a flicker of something like respect crossing her face. She turned to her warriors. "Prepare the Pride of Dawn," she ordered. "The human comes with us under protection of the law." Marcus took one last look at the broken horizon of the border moon, the place where the war had eaten everything, and felt the faint warmth of the cub's hand brush against his. Somewhere in that warmth, in that moment, the war no longer mattered. As the princess's ship rose into the sky, its engines carving fire across the clouds, Marcus realized something deep in his chest. A single act of kindness had just rewritten his fate. The war would never see it coming, but destiny had already chosen its next battlefield. And it was not made of stone or steel. It was made of hearts, choices, and the fragile mercy that both sides had long forgotten. The Jirai ship moved through the black silence of space like a living creature, its hull glowing with veins of molten gold that pulsed to a heartbeat Marcus could almost feel. He sat in a dim chamber surrounded by soft light and unfamiliar whispers, alien voices echoing in tones that rose and fell like music he couldn't decipher. Every breath smelled faintly of iron and spice. Every wall seemed alive, shifting slightly as if the ship itself listened. Marcus had been inside warships before. Human ones, machines built for killing, cold, clean, unfeeling. But this ship was different. It felt like stepping inside the chest of a sleeping beast. Dangerous but strangely calm, Aru sat close to him, clutching a piece of cloth Shaira had wrapped around his shoulders. The cub's eyes had lost some of their fear, now filled with quiet curiosity. He reached toward Marcus's arm and traced the human insignia burned into the soldier's armor. "What does it mean?" Aru asked softly. Marcus smiled faintly. "It means I protect my own," he said. The cub nodded slowly. "So do we," he whispered. The door hissed open, and Shaira entered with 2 guards. Her presence filled the chamber before her voice did. She carried herself like a storm bound in chains. Her armor had changed, now dark ceremonial plates lined with glowing runes. She looked at Marcus the way one studies an unknown weapon, cautious but intrigued. "The law of rescue binds you until the child is grown," she said, her tone even but heavy. "Our traditions name you shieldkin to my son Aru." "Your son," Marcus repeated quietly, the truth landing heavier than any order. "You're his mother." A flicker of pride crossed her golden eyes. "Blood of my blood," she said, "and now by your act, kin to you as well." Marcus tried to stand, but his knees still ached from the fall on the moon. "Look, I didn't mean to get tied into your laws," he said. "I just gave him food." "In our world, kindness is not a small thing," Shaira replied. "It is sacred. It demands recognition. It demands loyalty." He met her gaze, steady and unyielding. "And what does that mean for me?" She stepped closer, close enough that he could see the faint glow in her pupils. "It means you are no longer only human. You are part of a pride. And those who harm you harm us." Her words felt both like protection and a prison. Somewhere deep inside, Marcus sensed how dangerous this new bond truly was. He had crossed a line not even his own people understood. Later, they brought him through the ship's halls. The corridors were alive with heat and hum, lit by streams of light that rippled like water. Jirai soldiers stopped to stare as he passed, a human among predators. Each gaze was sharp, curious, sometimes hostile. He could hear them whispering in their own tongue, words heavy with disbelief. Shaira led him into the observation deck. From there, the galaxy spread open, a canvas of stars and shifting nebulae. In the distance, human patrol signals flickered like tiny embers. "Your kind calls this frontier Alpha Line," she said. "We call it the bleeding border." "It's fitting," Marcus murmured. "Too many died here." She looked at him then, not as an enemy, not as prey, but as something she couldn't yet name. "Do humans always feed those they defeat?" she asked. Marcus turned to the glass, watching the endless stars. "No," he said softly. "We usually bury them." That answer seemed to stay with her, echoing in the quiet that followed. Hours passed. Or maybe days. Time moved differently here. Marcus was assigned a small chamber beside Aru's quarters. He learned their customs through silence more than words. Bowing slightly before meals, placing one hand to the heart when showing respect, speaking low when among the young. It was strange how easily he adapted. But the world outside wasn't quiet. Across comm channels, human command demanded answers. Admiral Cade himself appeared on encrypted waves, his voice cold and official. "Lieutenant Hale, you are to be retrieved immediately. You are compromised, repeat compromised." Marcus stared at the flickering holofeed, the Admiral's face painted in blue static. "I'm under protection," he replied. "Their law binds me, you pull me out now. They'll see it as a declaration of war." Cade's expression hardened. "Then so be it." The feed cut out and Marcus sat in silence, the hum of alien machinery pulsing beneath him. He looked at his hands and realized they were shaking. Not from fear, but from the weight of what he'd just done. He wasn't sure which side he belonged to anymore that night. As the ship drifted through the dark sea between stars, Shira found him again. She stood in the doorway, no guards this time. "You spoke to your kind," she said, not as a question. "They called you traitor." Marcus didn't deny it. "Maybe they're right," he said. "Maybe I broke something I can't fix." She stepped closer until her reflection shimmered beside his in the window. "When I was a child," she said quietly, "my mother told me mercy is weakness. I believed her until today." He looked at her, surprised by the softness in her tone. "What changed?" Her gaze drifted toward Aru's sleeping room, where the small cub breathed peacefully under starlight. "You fed what I would have left to die," she whispered. And that changed everything. They stood there in silence. Two soldiers from worlds that hated each other, bound not by peace treaties or politics, but by a single act of compassion. Neither fully understood. Then the ship shuddered, a deep vibration running through the deck plates. Red lights flared, alarms pulsing in both human and Jedi tones. Shira snapped upright, her instincts instant and sharp. "Incoming lock," she barked. "Pirates or warships?" "They found us." Marcus followed her to the command deck. The crew already in motion, weapons charged, shields rising. In the chaos, Aru appeared, clutching the doorway with wide eyes. Shira's tail lashed. "To the child's chamber." "Now," she ordered. Marcus moved first, shielding Aru behind him. His human rifle hummed to life. The cold metal felt familiar, steady. Outside the viewport, dark shapes cut across the stars. Ships with no markings. Engines burning like stolen suns. "Someone sold our coordinates," Shira growled. "They come for the child." Marcus looked at her and nodded. No more questions left, only understanding. The war might have ended on paper, but in the shadows between stars, it had only changed shape. He crouched beside Aru, voice steady but low. "Stay close to me," he said, "and no matter what happens, don't let go." Aru's small hand found his again, the same way it had back on the ruined moon. Shira drew her twin blades, their edges glowing white-hot. The ship's guns roared to life, and somewhere deep inside Marcus, a quiet truth began to burn. The law had bound him. Yes, but something stronger was starting to take hold, something not born from duty or command. It was the kind of bond that could rewrite the fate of worlds. Space stretched endlessly beyond the glass, black and blue and cold, a silent ocean that hid enemies and ghosts alike. The pride of dawn moved through it like a wounded lion. Lights dimmed, shields flickering, scars glowing faintly where the battle had burned her hull. Marcus stood near the command deck railing, feeling the soft vibration beneath his boots, the hum of engines struggling to hold the ship together. The air was heavy with the smell of smoke and metal. Soldiers passed with quick steps carrying repair tools, dragging scorched armor plates. No one spoke. They didn't have to. The silence told its own story. They'd been hunted, attacked, nearly destroyed. And now every movement carried that mix of exhaustion and defiance only survivors knew. Aru sat on a crate beside the bulkhead, clutching a small metal sphere that blinked with faint light. It was a learning orb, something Shira had given him to teach basic tactical patterns. The cub's small claws tapped it nervously, eyes darting every time the ship groaned. Shira stood by the central console, speaking in low tones with her second in command. Her mane was damp, her eyes sharp. But Marcus saw the fatigue beneath her armor. She turned when she noticed him, her voice calm but edged with something unspoken. "We're heading to Grey Wheel Station," she said. "Neutral ground, or so they claim." Marcus crossed his arms. "Claim and truth rarely match out here." A small smile touched her lips. "That's something both our species agree on." He studied the star map that shimmered above the table, countless lights pulsing across trade routes and war borders. "You think the ones who attacked us were Kieran's men?" he said quietly. "Or human mercenaries?" Both, she replied, different faces. Same hunger. She looked toward Aru, her tone softening. The cub must be registered under protection of the law of rescue. If the bond isn't recognized by the council at Greywheel, they'll use it against us, say we stole him. Say your feeding was an act of war. Marcus exhaled slowly. And they'll come again. Yes, she said. They always come again. The pride of dawn broke through a thin storm of debris, engines humming as the vast spire of Greywheel came into view. It was a city floating in darkness. Thousands of rings stacked and turning around a glowing core, lights from every civilization flickering across its body like veins of life and crime. It was where treaties were made and broken, where secrets were sold for the right price when they docked. The airlock hissed open to the scent of oil, ozone, and too many species crowded under one roof. Marcus followed Shira and her guard through wide metallic halls filled with merchants, mercenaries, and diplomats. Each step echoed, each gaze lingered too long. A human among Jirai warriors was more than unusual. It was a story waiting to ignite. The registry hall stood deep within the heart of the station, circular and lit by cold white light. Holograms of ancient symbols floated above the floor. Shira placed her clawed hand on a glowing plate. Marcus followed, doing the same. The machine scanned their life signatures, threads of light connecting their names, their DNA, and the cub's identity into one chain. The bond is now recognized under neutral law, the registrar said in a mechanical tone. Violation of this protection will result in penalty of honor and trade. It should have been the end of the process. But Marcus felt it. Something shifting in the crowd around them, eyes that didn't belong to diplomats, shadows that moved with purpose. He turned slightly, hand near his sidearm, whispering, "We're being watched." Shira's ears flicked, her pupils narrowing. She didn't look, didn't react, but her tail moved once, slow and deliberate, a silent order to her guards. The first explosion wasn't loud, just a muffled thump beneath the floor. The second tore through the upper catwalk, raining sparks and debris. Screams followed, smoke flooding the hall. Marcus pulled Aru against his chest and dove behind a console. Through the smoke, dark figures appeared, mercenaries in mismatched armor, some wearing human visors, others bearing Jirai markings scraped clean, pirates under contract, killers under flags that shifted with coin. Shira moved like lightning, blades flashing white-hot as she cut through the first two attackers. Her guards roared, forming a line around the registry console. Marcus returned fire with short bursts, every shot echoing in the narrow chamber. The smell of plasma burned the air. "Get to the docks," Shira shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "They'll seal the exits." Marcus grabbed Aru's hand and ran, dodging falling beams and smoke. The cub's breathing came fast and sharp. "Don't look back," Marcus said. "Keep your eyes on me." They reached the corridor, alarms wailing red. The ship bay ahead glowed with warning lights. Shira's voice came through the comm. "The station council has locked our departure," she hissed. "They say our registration is invalid." Marcus stopped, his mind racing. "Invalid. We just completed it. Someone changed the record." He looked around, eyes narrowing. "A hack, or worse, a bought official," Shira cursed in her own tongue. "We'll call an honor hearing here." Now Marcus shook his head, still holding Aru close. "You'll be surrounded." She turned, her golden eyes blazing through the haze. "Then let them surround us," she said. "But they will hear the truth, and if they won't, they will see it." The corridor split open into the docking atrium. Dozens of species shouting, running, smoke thick as fog. The Pride of Dawn was locked behind energy shields, its engines glowing uselessly. Marcus raised his rifle again, pulse steady despite the pounding in his chest. "Then we make it there," he said, "and we make them listen." Shira drew her blades once more, her voice low but fierce. "For the child." "For the child," Marcus echoed. They stepped into the storm together, human and alien, soldier and queen, walking through fire toward a truth the galaxy had already decided to silence. And as the alarm screamed and metal thunder filled the air, Marcus realized this was no longer about a law or a promise. This was about survival, about mercy turned into rebellion, and about how one act of kindness had started a war that neither side could now escape. The circle of truth was not a court but an arena, carved from stone older than the stars that hung above Greywheel's cold dome. The floor glowed with faint lines that pulsed like veins, marking the space where words and blades held equal weight. 1,000 eyes filled the tiers, merchants, diplomats, soldiers, and spies, all drawn to the same spectacle. The hearing of the law of rescue between the HFY Princess and the human soldier who had broken the pattern of war. Marcus stood at the edge of the ring, the air sharp. Against his skin, his heart beating steady despite the noise. Shira stood beside him, her armor polished like burnished obsidian, the blue war paint on her cheeks glimmering faintly under the light. Around them the council of judges waited, half human, half alien, none of them smiling. Aru sat under guard behind a transparent shield of energy, small and silent, his wide eyes darting between his mother and Marcus. The cub's hands were pressed against the barrier, as if he believed his touch alone could protect them. Karen's envoy, a tall brute with silver fur and cold yellow eyes, stepped forward and spoke with a voice like gravel. "This law is false," he declared. "The human fed the cub not out of mercy but manipulation. He seeks favor through deceit. He cannot hold the title of shieldkin." Murmurs rippled through the hall. Some human officers nodded, others glared. Marcus said nothing. His silence drew more attention than words ever could. Shira stepped forward, her voice calm but carrying across every ear. "The law of rescue is sacred. It binds through act, not intention. It is older than this council." "Older than both our species' wars," Karen's envoy sneered. "And yet it is convenient, is it not, Princess? To claim a human as kin, to use him as shield and symbol, while your rival waits for your mistake." The council demanded proof, and Shira offered it. Recordings of Marcus finding Aru, the sound of his voice giving food, the child whispering his name. But when the hollow screens flickered to life, something was wrong. The timestamps didn't match. The data looked altered. Marcus felt the weight of the room shift, disbelief rising like a storm. He leaned close to Shira, his whisper urgent. "Someone tampered with it, the data's been forged." She didn't look at him, only kept her gaze fixed forward. "Karen's reach is long," she murmured. "He owns half the station's officials." The lead judge stood, robes shimmering. "If the evidence is corrupted, this case cannot stand," he said. Karen's envoy smiled slowly, victory gleaming in his teeth. "Then by council law, the bond dissolves," he said. "The cub reverts to blood claim. The human to trespasser." Aru began to cry, soft but clear, the sound echoing through the dome. Marcus clenched his fists, the fire rising in his chest. Shira stepped forward and struck her blade into the ground, the crack of metal echoing like thunder. "Then I call the trial of truth," she said. The hall froze, the crowd gasped. The envoy's smile vanished. "You dare," he hissed. "I do," Shira said. "One champion fights for truth, the other must expose the lie before death claims him. If either fails, their claim dies with them." Marcus turned to her. "You'll fight him?" She nodded once, her eyes fierce. "I'll fight for the law. Then I'll fight for the proof," Marcus said. The judges conferred briefly, then struck their staffs against the stone. "Trial accepted," they announced. The arena darkened, torches flared. Karen's envoy drew his twin blades, serrated and humming. Shira circled him like a predator, calm, focused. Each movement was ritual, each strike born from history and pride. Marcus moved to the edge, where a small data terminal blinked, the council's archive feed. He had no armor, no tools, just memory and instinct. But war had taught him that truth, like survival, demanded stubbornness. He began pulling logs, cross-checking every feed, fingers flying over alien symbols he barely understood. Somewhere deep in the network, a ghost file waited, hidden under encryption woven by someone who knew both human and HFY systems. The clash of steel rang behind him, every strike lighting the arena in bursts of orange sparks. Shira fought with silent fury, her movements like poetry. But her opponent was strong, heavier, his strikes shaking the floor. Marcus barely heard the crowd chanting, his focus trapped inside lines of code. Then he saw it, a signal trace leading to a backdoor connection, routed to the private comms of a human fleet. His stomach turned cold. "Cade," he whispered. Admiral Cade had linked with Kieran, the attack on the moon. The ambush here, it was never coincidence. It was cooperation. He forced the feed open, rerouted it to the council's main display. The screens above the ring flared to life, showing Admiral Cade's seal beside the forged timestamps, the payment trail between human command and Karen's faction. The crowd erupted, half in shock, half in rage. The judges rose to their feet. Shira drove her blade upward in one final arc, disarming the envoy, his weapon clattering across the floor. She pressed her claws to his throat but didn't strike. "Truth stands," she said, her voice steady and cold. Marcus turned from the console, sweat running down his temple. And now everyone sees it, he said quietly. The envoy growled, defeated. You'll regret this. Human? Maybe, Marcus said. But not today. The judges struck their staffs again. The law of rescue is upheld. The Humans Act is valid. The bond remains. The crowd broke into chaos, some cheering, others storming out. Shira sheathed her blades and walked toward Marcus, her eyes soft for the first time since the battle. You have a strange way of fighting, she said. He smiled faintly. I use what I have. As they turned to leave, Marcus glanced back at the council's burning screens, at the evidence now public across the station. He knew what came next. Karen would want blood. Cade would want silence. And between them stood one human, one princess, and a cub whose life had become the spark for a fire no one could stop. Outside, the sirens began to sound again. The Pride of Dawn was being prepared for departure. But this time they were not running, they were hunted, and they both knew it. As the doors of the arena closed behind them, Shira spoke softly. You said once humans feed what they protect, Marcus nodded. And protect what they feed, she smiled. The kind that came not from victory, but from understanding. Then you'll fit right in with us, she said. And for the first time since the war began, Marcus felt it too, something more powerful than duty, more dangerous than fear. The beginning of trust between species that were never meant to stand side by side. A fragile bond that might yet change the galaxy, if it could survive what came next. The storms of the Ember Drift burned red and gold across the void, clouds of ionized dust swirling like slow fire. The Pride of Dawn moved through that light like a wounded ghost. Her hull streaked with battle scars, her engines low. Inside the ship everything was dim, lit by the glow of repair drones and the soft pulse of medical monitors. The war had gone quiet for now, but the quiet didn't bring peace. It only made everyone hear the weight of their own thoughts. Marcus sat in the lower hangar with his back against a crate. A bandage wrapped around his shoulder from the last fight. The air smelled of oil and ozone. Somewhere above him the hum of energy coils echoed like a heartbeat. He had spent his life fighting wars for orders, for borders, for commanders who never saw the dirt under his boots. But this was different. He wasn't fighting for Earth anymore. He was fighting for a promise, for a child. For something that still felt too large to explain. Aru sat beside him, his small tail flicking lazily as he traced his claws across a datapad, trying to copy human letters. Arcade, he whispered, eyes narrowing with focus. Marcus smiled and corrected him gently, guiding his hand. You're getting it right, he said, just slower. The cub looked up with a grin that still carried the glow of innocence. Shira says patience is the heart of strength. Marcus chuckled. She's not wrong, he said. She's just not very patient about saying it. Shira's voice echoed softly from the catwalk above. I heard that, she said, her tone balanced between warning and warmth. She descended the metal stairs, her armor lightened, no helmet, her mane unbound and flowing like dark silk under the ship's lights. The human soldier grows bold, she said. Even wounded. Comes with the uniform. Marcus replied, looking up at her with a tired smile. She studied him for a long moment before lowering herself to sit nearby. Her golden eyes reflected the storm's light through the hangar window. You fight differently, she said quietly. Not like the Jirai, not like any warrior I've known. You move as if every battle already cost you something you can't get back. Marcus didn't answer right away. His gaze followed the storm outside. Because it did, he said finally. We've lost more than we can count. Every human soldier carries ghosts with him. We just learn how to keep walking with them. Her tail moved once. Slowly, a gesture he had learned meant understanding. Perhaps that is why your people frighten ours, she said. You keep fighting long after reason tells you to stop. He looked at her, his voice steady but low. Maybe because sometimes stopping means the wrong thing lives. Their silence after that wasn't empty. It was heavy. Alive with things neither dared to say. The ship creaked softly, the hum of power filling the air like a heartbeat between them. Later in the command chamber, they stood before the holomap again. A message blinked red across the console, intercepted from the outer beacons. Shira narrowed her eyes as the words scrolled. Refuge field, she murmured. One of our border colonies, mixed population. Jirai and human settlers. Marcus leaned closer. What happened? Karen plans to strike it, she said, her claws tightening against the console. He wants to draw me out if he destroys Refuge Field. It will break the last treaty lines and give him control of the outer rings. Marcus's stomach turned cold. And Cade? His fleet is moving too, Shira said. Not to protect but to seize, they want a public victory, one they can show their worlds. He rubbed a hand across his jaw, thinking fast. They're using the colony as bait. Her voice was sharp. We can't ignore it, no, Marcus said. But if we fight them both head-on, we lose. We have to move smarter. Not stronger. Shira looked at him, waiting. He pointed to the map, tracing the storm paths with his finger. The Ember Drift plays havoc with sensors. If we route our ship through the lower storm bands and drop before the colony, we can evacuate the civilians before they close the trap. She frowned slightly. And when they arrive? Then we make them fight each other, he said. We split their focus. Karen wants you, Cade wants me. We give them both what they want, just not how they expect it. The edges of her mouth curved slightly. That plan sounds like suicide. Most good ones do, Marcus said with a dry smile. But if it works, no one innocent dies. She looked at him then, really looked. The way one looks at a person they can't quite categorize anymore. You would risk your life for those not your own, she said softly. Even when your own kind calls you traitor. He met her eyes without flinching. I already chose my side. For a moment she said nothing. Her gaze locked on his, the stormlight flickering between them like fire and shadow. Then she turned toward the console. Voice firm. Prepare the Pride for battle. We move at dawn. When dawn came, it was red. The stars behind the storm fading as the Pride of Dawn ignited her engines. Aru stood at the viewport watching with awe. Are we going to save them? He asked. Marcus rested a hand on his shoulder. That's the plan, he said. And plans have to start somewhere. Shira joined them, her armor gleaming again, the runes freshly carved. She looked at Marcus and said, You'll lead the ground evacuation. I'll take the fleet above when it begins. There will be no safe path, he nodded. There never is. As the ship broke through the last layer of storm and the colony came into view, a fragile patch of green and silver floating against a sea of flame, Marcus felt the old pulse of fear rise in his chest. But it was different now. Not cold, not empty. It was alive with purpose beside him. Shira placed her hand briefly on his shoulder, her claws gentle against his armor. For the child, she said, her voice quiet but certain. For the child, Marcus echoed. The Pride of Dawn dove toward the burning horizon, the storm swallowing its light, and somewhere far beyond, two fleets waited in the dark, both ready to destroy everything they didn't understand. The galaxy was holding its breath again, but this time mercy had teeth and it was coming for them. The first light over Refuge Field was not sunlight, it was fire. Streaks of plasma carving through the thin atmosphere like falling stars. The colony lay beneath a soft haze of smoke, domes cracked, sky torn open by the shadow of descending warships. The ground trembled with the sound of engines and the deep echo of fear. Marcus stood at the edge of the landing zone, visor down, rifle steady, his breath fogging the glass. Behind him, civilians hurried toward transports. Jirai and human families mixed together. Clutching what little they had left, children cried, elders prayed, and over it all came the low hum of the Pride of Dawn holding position above the clouds. Evac line ready, came a voice in his earpiece, static cutting between words. But they're closing fast. Marcus's eyes lifted to the sky, seeing the enemy ships emerging from the horizon. Karen's cruisers, painted black and blood red, cutting through the mist like blades behind them. Smaller human crafts approached from the opposite side, sleek and organized, Admiral Cade's fleet, each side hunting for the same target, the same prize. Between them lay a world full of lives that didn't matter to anyone, but the ones already trying to save them. Shira's voice came through the calm as steel. Marcus, I'm engaging the first wave, keep the path open. No matter what. Copy that, he replied, gripping his weapon tighter. He looked at Aru, crouched near a supply crate, the cub wearing a small harness with a beacon on his back. You stay close, Marcus said. You move when I say. Aru nodded, his little face set with a courage that didn't belong to a child. The sound of his small claws against metal was the only fragile thing in all that chaos. Then the battle began. The sky split open with the roar of engines and lightning. Jirai fighters streaked out from the Pride of Dawn, their trails glowing gold. They met Karen's swarm in a storm of fire and debris. Shira's voice echoed through command channels, calling maneuvers, her words cutting clean and sharp. Marcus moved through the smoke of the lower levels. Leading a squad of mixed soldiers, his boots sank into ash. his armor glowing faintly from heat. He fired at shapes that flickered between shadows. Mercenaries and soldiers both. Men and aliens who didn't even know why they fought anymore, only that someone paid them to. Every corridor was a war of its own. Flashes of light, screams, dust, and movement. The colony's domes shuddered under bombardment, panels falling like glass rain. Marcus threw his arm around a civilian. Pulling them from the collapse, he could feel the weight of every decision pressing against his chest. Too many people, too little time above him. The Pride of Dawn roared, its guns carving lines of light across the sky. Shira's ship danced between enemy fire, weaving through chaos with the grace of something alive. She struck Karen's flagship broadside, engines burning bright as a second sun. Her voice in the comm came through gritted teeth. "Keep moving, Marcus. The mines are armed." "I'll detonate them when you're clear." He glanced at his scanner. Enemy readings closing. The colony's perimeter shrinking fast. "We're not clear yet," he said. "Hold the trigger," the comm crackled. Static eating her voice. "If I wait, we lose the field." He looked at Aru, who was helping a smaller child climb into the last transport. The cub's eyes lifted toward him, trusting completely, and Marcus made his choice. "Then we don't lose it," he said. "We win it." He pulled a plasma charge from his belt, armed it, and pressed it to a support beam beside the corridor. "Get those people on board," he told the others, "and tell them to launch the second the hatch seals." "What about you?" Someone shouted. Marcus gave a crooked grin. "I'll be right behind you." The beam detonated, the blast wave clearing the last of the blocked passageways. He and Aru sprinted through, smoke swirling around them, flames chasing their heels outside. The evacuation ships began to lift, engines howling. The sight hit Marcus like a promise. Every life that rose meant something had been saved. But the sky wasn't done breaking. Karen's cruiser fell from orbit, trailing fire, striking the far ridge like a mountain falling. The impact rippled through the colony. Knocking Marcus to his knees, Aru stumbled. And in that moment, a stray drone fired, the bolt grazing Marcus's shoulder. The pain flared white-hot, but his arm still worked. He grabbed Aru and shielded him as debris rained down. Through the haze, a voice cut through his comm, Shira's. Urgent and raw. "Marcus, we're hit. We can't hold much longer." He coughed, blood in his throat. "Then bring it down, make it count." There was a long silence on the channel, the kind filled with things that didn't need to be said. Then Shira's calm voice returned, quieter now. "You'll have your opening." Marcus looked to the horizon, where the Pride of Dawn began to climb, engines flaring brighter than the dawn itself. For one terrible second it seemed she was retreating, but then he saw it, the curve, the loop, the fall. She turned her ship through her own wake, diving back through fire, straight into the center of the minefield. "Shira," he whispered. The mines ignited in a chain of light that tore the sky apart, shockwaves rolling across the field like tidal waves. Every enemy ship caught in the blast vanished in a storm of gold and black. The fire reflected off the colony domes, painting everything in the glow of both victory and loss. Marcus held Aru tight as the ground shook, debris falling around them like rain. "It's over," he said, though he didn't believe it yet. When the sky finally cleared, the Pride of Dawn was barely moving, her hull broken, fire still burning deep inside. But she was alive, and so was the colony. Rescue beacons lit up the field, transports breaking through the smoke, survivors cheering weakly through tears. Marcus felt the exhaustion hit him like gravity, his limbs heavy, his heart heavier still. He turned toward the horizon where Shira's crippled ship drifted, and in the distance her voice came through, faint but alive. "You did it." "Marcus," she said. "They're safe," he smiled, eyes closing for a moment as the wind carried the sound of children's laughter from the transports. "No," he whispered, "we did it." And in that fragile silence after the storm, as the stars reappeared above the wounded world, Marcus realized that sometimes victory didn't roar. It just breathed, quiet, broken, and alive. The council chamber of the Stone of Oaths was built into the spine of an ancient asteroid, its walls made from glass and volcanic rock. The stars beyond burned like silent witnesses. Watching history turn once more, the Pride of Dawn floated outside, scarred but alive, her lights dim but steady. Inside, the air was tense, filled with the low hum of engines and the quiet murmur of gathered voices. Every major power had sent representatives, their colors and banners bright against the dark stone. They had come to judge what could not be undone, the fate of the law of rescue, and the strange alliance between a human soldier and a HFY princess. Marcus stood beside Shira at the center of the hall, his uniform torn and patched. His arms still bandaged, but his posture steady. Aru stood between them, small and silent, his fur brushed clean, the beacon collar around his neck glowing faintly. The child was the heart of it all, the living proof of a bond that neither side wanted to believe could exist. Karen's seat was empty now, a cold reminder of the man who had tried to twist mercy into war. He had fallen on refuge field. His fleet shattered, his pride gone to ash, but his shadow still hung heavy in the minds of those gathered. Some called Shira a hero, others called her reckless, some called Marcus a traitor, others called him savior. The truth was larger than all those words. The head of the council rose, his robes glimmering like oil under starlight. This hearing will determine whether the law of rescue extends beyond species, he said, his voice echoing through the chamber. If compassion can be recognized between bloods that share no origin, then a new precedent is born. If not, the war begins again. The room fell silent. Shira stepped forward, her voice calm but carrying power like a slow tide. We have lived by the law of rescue for generations, she began. It is the law that binds us to honor those who protect life. It does not ask what species bleeds or breathes. It only asks who had the courage to save and who did not. She turned, her eyes sweeping across the council. A human fed my child. Not for advantage, not for glory, but because he could not watch a child die. That is the only truth that matters. A human admiral stood. The council's human delegation tense. You ask us to rewrite centuries of law, he said, to grant rights that blur the line between protector and invader. Where does it end, princess? When humans begin claiming kinship with every alien who smiles at them? Shayra's eyes flashed, her tone sharpened but steady. It ends when mercy stops being treated as weakness. Marcus stepped forward before the tension could break, his voice quieter but full of weight. When I found Aru on that dead moon, I wasn't thinking about law or politics, he said. I saw a starving child, I had food, that was it. You call us Deathworlders, you call us dangerous, maybe we are. But the truth is simple. We protect what we feed. That's how we've survived our own wars. That's how we'll survive this one too, the council murmured, their voices rising and falling like the sea before a storm. One of the alien judges, tall and pale with eyes like liquid silver, spoke softly. And if we pass this law, if we extend the right of rescue across species, what happens when that mercy is betrayed? Marcus looked at him. Then we hold them accountable, not for who they are, but for what they do. You don't protect mercy by limiting it, you protect it by making it sacred. The words hung there. Heavy and real, Aru stepped forward unexpectedly, his small voice trembling but strong. He saved me, he said, and my mother saved him. Now I want to save others. Isn't that what grown-ups are supposed to do? The simplicity of it cracked the silence. Even those hardened by war lowered their eyes. Shara placed a hand gently on her son's shoulder, the movement both proud and fragile. Outside the chamber, stormlights rippled across the void as fleets waited on standby. If the council voted against them, both sides would draw blood before the hour ended. The galaxy was watching, holding its breath. The head judge raised his staff. We have heard enough, he said. Let the council decide. The lights dimmed. One by one, the representatives placed their marks upon the holoscreen. Gold for yes, red for no. The colors shimmered across the air like falling embers. Marcus's pulse thudded in his ears. Shayra's tail flicked once. Aru held both their hands, small fingers clutching tight. When the last mark burned into the screen, the judge turned. By majority will, he said. The council recognizes the law of rescue across species. Mercy between worlds is now bound under oath. Let it be recorded and remembered. The war is over. A roar filled the chamber, some in joy, some in disbelief. Shayra's shoulders sank with a long breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Marcus closed his eyes, letting the sound wash over him. Aru laughed, a soft, pure sound that rose above it all. But the peace that followed wasn't loud. It was quiet, cautious, full of fragile hope. The fleets outside powered down their weapons. The pride of dawn glided closer, her hull catching the light of the new dawn that rose over the asteroid field. Shayra turned to Marcus, her voice low. The bond between us is fulfilled. The law no longer binds you. He looked at her for a long moment, the noise around them fading until only her golden eyes held his reflection. Maybe the law doesn't, he said, but the choice does. She studied him. her expression unreadable but soft. Then what choice will you make? He smiled faintly. The same one I made that day on the moon. I'll stay. Aru looked between them and smiled, his tail flicking once. Then we're a pride, he said, his voice full of warmth. The princess nodded slowly, her gaze lifting toward the stars. Then let the stars bear witness, she whispered. That rescue, not conquest, began our new age. The great glass above them reflected the light of distant suns, the echo of a future not yet written. And as the pride of dawn turned toward the stars, leaving trails of gold behind her, Marcus realized that mercy had done what no weapon ever could. It had changed the shape of the galaxy forever, and for the first time in generations, the stars no longer looked like battlegrounds, they looked like home.